Everyone's present, Mayor.
All right, thank you. If you'll please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First up is the presentation of the 2017 First Quarter Beautification Award. Linda?
Thank you, Mayor. If I could have Jared come up, please. Is this your brother?
Yeah, you did make it.
Good. So glad you guys could come up. On behalf of the city of DeSoto and the mayor and the council, we would like to present you guys with the sign for the improvements you've made to your property. The 323 TV LLC, that's the old Morris store, and they made it look beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. If you ever had a chance to look, go by and look. The doors open up with got brick on it and everything just looks lovely. So we've got an award for you and also a check that we'd like to present to you. And we're just really proud of the work you've done. Our goal with this is to make sure that people see the work you do. It kind of has that ripple effect and causes other people in the neighborhood to do the same. So thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. In the middle.
Yep, I'll be in the middle. Thank you guys very much.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, guys. Next up is consent agenda. Approve the minutes of the council meeting March 16th and approve pay ordinance number 804.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion on it? Roll call.
Lane,
Yes.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Thank you, council. The motion carried.
And then we'll, under consent agenda, we've added approve the pay ordinance 804A.
I move we approve pay ordinance 804A.
I'll second the motion.
Have a motion to approve and a second. Roll call.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Thank you, council. The motion carried.
All right, thank you. All right. Next up is call to public. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to comment about any matter relating to city business not listed on this agenda. The comments that are discussed under call to public may or may not be acted upon by the council during this meeting. There's a 4-minute time limit. Please stand and be recognized. Do we have anybody in the call to public? No one? All right. Give me a second here.
Gerald has players to talk,
Huh?
so speak quiet.
I've lost my voice.
Gerald doesn't have a
I'll-
voice.
I'll yield my 4 minutes to someone else.
Okay. Next up is old business. Consider temporary use permit for DeSoto Days.
Yes, council, this is old business because we were gonna discuss it at the March 16th meeting, but Heather Lucas was unable to attend that meeting, and she is excited about representing the DeSoto Days organization in her first year at the helm, so I think I'll turn it over to her.
Oh.
With the consent of the mayor, of course.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, I think it's been fairly standard for what we've done up to now, which are all kind of the same in terms of what we need from the city and what we're providing for the city. So I don't think this next year is going to be any different than the past 5. Except for, I bet we have a better year than we did last year. Every year has gone up in terms of attendance and participation and less complaints. Love that. So, do you have any questions?
So as in years past, council, there's actually 3 permits that we get for this event. One's a temporary use permit for essentially the use of the park grounds. The dates this year, August 31st through September 2nd. That's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Typical wristband night, carnival Thursday night, and then Friday and Saturday would be the parade. So there's also a parade permit involved, and then there's a noise permit for all 3 days. The only other thing to bring to your attention is that the committee has requested a waiver of the fees for those permits involved. So if you're so inclined, if you want to make a motion to approve those permits and also waive the fees if that's your desire.
I'll make a motion, we approve the temporary use permit waiving the fee. We approve the parade permit and we approve the noise permit for DeSoto Days.
Patrick, do we need to do those individually, or we can do them all together?
No, they can do them all
Okay.
together unless someone
Object to one part of them.
corrects.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second on that?
Yes.
Do we have a
Ronnie.
Got a motion to approve in a second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Lane,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Thank you, council. The motion carried.
Thank you very much. Hope to see you all there.
Thank you. Next is to consider options for newsletter or community magazine.
Yes, council, after a successful launch of our cooperation with the Discovering DeSoto publication last month, we distributed the city spotlight issue of that publication, mailed out to every post box in the 66018 area code. Personally received very positive feedback from that effort. I think the end product was a nice product, informative. The graphics looked good. The process internally here at City Hall went well. The generation of the content, working with Rose, that all went very smoothly. We met our deadlines, right? No big hiccups, no big disasters. And I can report it also internally that the process was pretty smooth. And I think it seems like the community got out of it what we hoped they would. So when we made the decision to do that, it was a one-time thing. We decided we're gonna try it for that first quarter and see how it worked, and then make a decision about the rest of the year after that. You'll remember we spent $4,600 on that effort, which is just about almost what we would spend in an entire year on the old newsletter, which was the old paper insert product with the journal roll. So now we're ready to make that decision moving forward. Rose has gotten together some options for our consideration. The staff report, I've summarized those options. One of them is to just continue with that same arrangement through the next 3 quarters of this year at the same price of $4,600 per issue. So the total yearly cost then would be $9,200 the rest of the year. I'm sorry, that total cost would be $18,400. I was looking at the second option, which was do the same thing, only we do it only one more time this year in the fall. So that would equate to a total yearly expenditure of $9,200. The third proposal would be to continue a city spotlight presence in the Discovering DeSoto, but not mail that out to every resident, but rather mail out postcard reminders that the publication is available, and we'd make that free of charge at local. Rose, stop me if I'm say something wrong.
Okay, well, yeah.
So we'd make the publication free of charge distributed at the local businesses, so at Harps, here at City Hall, maybe at the post office, and then mail out little postcards to each resident that says, hey, this thing's available, why don't you go get it? Just a little information postcard.
And I
So-
think that would be at a lower printing rate, that last option.
Yeah, so we wouldn't print so many copies of it. We'd only, it'd be 500 copies.
Yeah, so it'd be yeah, because this issue was, or last issue was 2,750.
Right. Yeah.
So that would be quite a bit less.
Quite a bit less, and you kind of play by ear on that. I don't know if everybody's gonna get the postcard and rush down to grab one.
Yeah, and then some
So
people will go
500.
online and,
Right.
you know, so, and that might be that, you know, if you find you run out of that 500, then maybe you would, you know, do 750 or 1,000 next time. You know, it'd be
Yeah,
like
we
a
just-
starting point.
We learn as we go.
Right.
The fourth proposal that Rose presented to us was one that has to do with, printing the magazine on newsprint, on a newsprint medium, and Rose can tell you more about that, maybe here a little bit later, because I'm still a little foggy on exactly what that proposal is. In addition to that, we do have options that we discussed in February about a city newsletter that would be produced in-house, the content generated in-house, and mailed to every citizen. And these prices would be mailing this newsletter to the same group, all the postal customers in 66018, which obviously includes people that are outside of the city. Option one is an 11 by 17 centerfolded double-sided newsletter with printing and mailing of that. It's about $2,500, $2,600 per issue. Another option would be just to produce a 6 by 12 inch two-sided postcard. So the content would be much abbreviated from that. Between printing and mailing, distributing those again to each postal customer in the zip code, total price per edition of that about $2,300. So those are kind of the two options I think we discussed before relating to in-house newsletter. So then we talk about the frequency. How often would we do this? An 11 by 17 newsletter every other month would be, our total yearly cost would be over $15,000. Of course, if we did that quarterly, it would be about $10,000. 6 by 12 inch postcards monthly would be up around $28,000, and then a 6 by 12 postcard every other month would be half that, so it'd be $13,000 or $15,000. There's information in the staff report. I won't go through it in detail about the budget. You know, when we set the budget in 2017, we weren't really contemplating an increased effort here. I think we realized that. I think our motivation for providing the increased effort comes from a lot of the feedback we had during our citizen participation over the winter time. And so we realized that we're going to be exceeding this line item budget for this item. It's not the end of the world. I think with our fund balances the way they are in the general fund, and some other supplements from other line items in the other departments, we'll be okay. But just know that we're going to be exceeding that line item budget. I talked already about feedback from the Discovering DeSoto issue, so I won't go into detail there.
Can I
There's a-
add something about that total cost for 4,600, that top line, or should I wait till you're done?
Well, I'm almost there.
Oh, okay, sorry,
I'm
okay.
almost there. I should have pulled this up before. I didn't know where we were. Should have been going through this as we go. But the only other thing I would say on the last page of the staff report, there's a little kind of a decision matrix that you've seen before about kind of some of our options there. So I don't have a solid recommendation conclusion on this. I think this is something we just need to talk through, and we'll hear from Rose about maybe some clarification on some of these items and maybe some other ideas. We just want to get some direction moving forward regarding what the council would like us to be working on moving through the rest of the year. So I'll stop there. Answer any questions the council might have of me. And invite you to ask Rose to provide some feedback.
What I also wanted to just add, to the total cost of this last issue, that included 4 pages from the city that were exclusively for the city use that I, designed. And, I believe that charge was $875, and I had mentioned to Mike that, you know, you don't have to have 4 pages each issue. I mean, a lot of it is, magazines about DeSoto, but I mean, you know, that included a lot of the city report and, stated, you know, that, you know, like the year-end report. And so, you know, that total amount could be a little bit less, you know, if you go with, you know, say 2 pages. And so a question I had, which I addressed to Mike, is what is a feasible budget amount the city would be willing to contribute, and, you know, for you to think about that. And then I'm passing out benefits of the citywide distribution of this magazine, the last issue, because, you know, it's really an important tool for communication and promoting the city of DeSoto and all the things I list here. And I think it really shows DeSoto in a very good, positive light. And even the first page ad, you know, in talking with Mike, people did not know we had, you know, the new water tower, so now people know. And that's a big thing, and even coming up with the building values, celebrating tradition. You know, if you had a marketing firm doing this, you would probably add a 0 at the end of some of the costs of that. But I think, even though it was a big investment, I think you got a lot for your money for, you know, just all the things that were informed about the city and communicated, and even, you know, to, you know, just even this building value celebrating tradition is something that the city could utilize in other areas too. But you know what I also wanted to just clarify is, with print, we printed these on a press, and so the cost is a lot different when you go on a press. You need a higher run versus digitally. And you know, I mentioned before that I get a special pricing digitally if it's, you know, $500 to $750, because normally those would run between $4 and $5 an issue. And so when we got up to this amount, you know, it's just more your advantage to run on a press a higher amount. And so the newsletter, when it comes out to 8 pages at $28.47, it's almost not that much difference to print the whole magazine because of the press, you know, the presses you're using and the size, and, you know, it, once you get to a certain point, it's a lot better to print more and to print more pages and all that. So I didn't know if you guys had any questions about the pricing, or that, or anything on those sheets, so.
I have a question for Mike. Was that a line item, or we just took it out of the general fund?
It comes out of general fund, it comes out of the printing and advertising portion on the admin budget. So, the newsletter had a certain portion of that, and then the rest is just general, like when we need to put public ad, there's other stuff in that line item.
Could we use the transient guest tax? Since we're advertising?
Yeah, I don't know if that falls under tourism and economic development are the 2 words,
Yeah.
right?
You know, if it was just information like on the water bill or water, I think that probably would not fit within the definition of the charter ordinance we have. But if the content was, you know, we're promoting, you know, economic development or tourism, then yeah, it would come within the expenditure. So I guess it just depends on what the content was. Yeah.
And, you know, this year I am promoting DeSoto's 160th year, and then I will be, for the fall issue, having the DeSoto Days and Sunflower Art Fest. and really all of the events of DeSoto are in my publication, and so, and even I have a business, page 2 of, that I started now, so, yeah, business news and events, and so, you know, it really, on my sheet I passed around for, benefits, you know, I think this is a great tool to use for economic development and to bring people into the area. And I'll be getting with the DeSoto Days Committee, because I know they used to have a, you know, the newsprint that you guys did through Lawrence. And so I will be talking with them about, you know, having DeSoto Days part of this too, so.
So Rose, I have a few comments, and some of them, I don't want them to be taken negative in any way, because it's more of a asking questions to get people thinking about things. But the first thing, before I get to those, where it went with this last issue, with the city distributing it, obviously, to everyone, is that close to what your goal was when you started this, or what? I mean, as far as the distribution and people looking at it, I mean, what your original goal was with starting this magazine, and now with the city having mailed it to everybody in city limits. Is that like, wow, that's a good ending point for what I wanted for that? Or are we in some way making it a negative for what you wanted?
No.
I don't want it to be like, if you had plans for this to go a different direction and we steered it off, you know, in a different way from what you wanted, that's.
Well, I
Has
think
that
you
happened?
steered it in the right direction,
Okay.
actually.
Okay.
Because I was a little hesitant last time, and, but I think it was the best thing to do, because it's a publication for the city of DeSoto, and it went to the entire city, and that's what it needed to do.
Okay.
And I needed a little
Yeah.
prompting to do that.
Well, I just didn't want it to be a negative for you and what you wanted out of the magazine, so. So with that being said, my thoughts are that the last one was really, really, I mean, they've all been really good, and the last one was exceptionally good because it had all the information about the city in it, and I like that. But as far as moving forward, I guess my question again is what message do we as a city want to continue to have? And by a city, I don't mean all the activities of the community, but city council type, city hall stuff that we want in it, and how much space do we need for something like that? And then my second thought and question is it, do the citizens of DeSoto want us to use their taxpaying money to mail this out to everybody? You know, because it, you know, and if they do, that's great, I'm not against that. But I just wanna make sure that, you know, we don't wanna have a lot of time going into us coming up with articles for it all the time and stuff. And I guess my big question is, what role do we want in that? Because it is really good for events, you know, DeSoto Days, Wine Song, the businesses, it's a good tool for that. It's, you know, that's kind of just my idea, is that the direction we wanna go, is being the one that is financially responsible for that information getting to people. I guess that's really kind of, you know, I'm not saying it in a negative way, mainly just an eye-opening way that, you know, we're gonna spend $15,000 to put out a magazine, or it's $20,000 to put out a magazine, and, you know, that, if that's what we wanna do, that's good. It's a good communication tool, I think. You know, I really didn't hear a whole lot of one way or the other feedback from people who had gotten it this time, so I'm not real sure.
So,
That's what I was gonna ask, did we get any feedback up here at City Hall? Tommy?
yeah, so in terms of feedback, remember we talked about having an online poll and a little poll set up, just a quick little, hey, how do you want to get your information? So we did that. There was a notice in the publication itself with a link to an online poll. We only got 23 responses to that, and it was a real simple little thing. There was only 3 questions, and they were, do you want your information in print or digital? Do you want it mailed to your house, or do you want to go pick it up? And what was the other? Something along those lines. And by 70 to 30 distribution, people wanted it in print and they wanted it mailed to them. Now, that might be a completely biased audience that we just reached there with a print mailer, but for what it's worth. Anecdotally, I've heard from a handful of people that they really appreciated and liked the addition of the magazine. Yeah, but those are just anecdotal report. I don't know that anybody would come up to me or come up to City Hall and say, I hated that thing. You know?
Yeah, well, I don't think so either, I mean,
Well, I understand where you're coming from, and you're right, we need to look at that, but my thing is, what else do we have to advertise, to tell people what's going on in our community? We just don't, and at the meetings that Mike had, when we brought people in, the number one thing was communications, and we discussed that when we had our gatherings, and we still haven't come up with a way to do it, other than we were gonna talk about this here. I don't know, I feel like we need to tell the people what's going on. I felt like that when we started that newsletter a long time ago, but like we talked about, that got over that. So, did people read it? I don't know. I read it, and everybody I've talked to, and that's not a lot of people, but they read it, and they looked at it, and they were very positive about it, so. I don't know, do we do it again one more time and see what happens, or?
I see advantages to continuing what we're doing. It's like a public-private partnership. We are funding the printing and the mailing, but we're not having to pay for the formatting and the content generation, and that's a significant effort if we were to do that on our own. I don't think, for a monthly newsletter, I don't think I would be comfortable laying that task on Mike's shoulders or Lana's shoulders or anybody else. That's just extra work that we really don't have capacity probably to undertake, so we would have to have an outside resource to help us with that if we were doing this on our own. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to take advantage of talent and a willing partner in the community and extend it. I'm not, maybe for the rest of this year, I'm not comfortable maybe going with 2 more issues. Maybe I would be more comfortable maybe 1 more issue this year, and then as we consider our budget for next year, we consider 4 issues for next year, but maybe for the rest of this year, we look at 1 more issue, is my
So you're
thought.
talking about a fall issue then?
Be a fall issue.
Yeah, you'd wanna, with all the events. And
Right.
as I mentioned, there's that 4-page design cost in there, that's $875. And then also the EDM mailing. And, I didn't have any advertising on your pages when I did it, because, you paid for those pages, but, there is, some negotiable areas to, I don't know if you want ads.
Did you have customers that could have filled that?
Well, I purposely kept them off your pages
Oh,
because you
okay.
guys paid for those.
But you had people that was gonna wanna advertise?
Well, I limited my,
Okay.
I limited that, but, there's about, $1,200 in there. Well, $875 with the page design and then the EDDM. And, I would be willing to negotiate some of, so it wouldn't be $4,600 for 4 issues either, to invest on my end a little bit too, because I think it is valuable to have it mailed to everyone. And, and for, the 4 pages, maybe 2 pages would be sufficient. I don't know what you.
Yeah, we could go all day long.
Well,
on this.
there's a little bit, because the 4,600 times 4, that does get, it's almost, not quite 20,000, but it's a little bit less. But I'm thinking, that's why I was wondering, if you felt you'd want to invest 15,000 or 16,000. It can be brought down a little bit per issue, is what I wanted to also, just put out there too, because I, feel I could invest a little bit, not a lot, but, some towards that too, because I think it would be valuable for you guys to be funding that printing too, so.
I just wonder if we have enough new news to justify 4 times a year. Having it twice a year, you know, seems to be a lot more reasonable. I don't know how.
Well, for Rose's side of it, in the publication of the product in hand, she does. I mean, she continuously is able to come
Yeah,
up
I
with the
actually have to
stories
cut
and
copy.
she probably has ideas for the next 5 years already laid out in her head, so she does. Now, us as a city, how much we have, that, you know, that's kind of one of the key things I keep saying over and over again, you know, what are we as a city wanting to put in it, and what things are we wanting to get out to them? And it's a great tool to be able to do that, you know, but on top of it, coming in partway through the year and, you know, not having it budgeted this year, you know, like Rick, it's hard to spend money that we don't have budgeted in. You know, $18,000, I mean, you know, there's a lot of things, I have a lot of other ideas in my mind, I could spend $18,000 for this city too, that we needed, and we say no because we don't have it in our budget, so it's, you know, it's just so difficult because I know we need it and I know that people ask for communication all the time. I guess, you know, if we do this another time in the fall and I quit hearing from everybody, communication is needed, then I'll be, okay, we can maybe fund this for next year. But if I continue to hear, this town has no means of communication, it didn't serve its point, you know, and which I don't think anything is going to, but, so I'm willing to try it again, but it's just a matter of figuring out, you know, like Rick said, how many we wanna do and when we wanna do it, and what information we as a city are wanting to put into something that we're paying for like that.
Oh, I'd like to see us do it one more time. I'd like to see us maybe, I'm thinking along the lines of 10, maybe that the stuff we put in there instead of 4, cut back to 2. And if that would work for the city with Mike being the judge of that, because he knows what's in there, what was in there before and what the people would like to see that's not a repeat. And maybe go that direction and cut our costs a little bit there and go another mailing for this year and then see what happens after that mailing to see if we want to do something like Lori said, to go on next year in the budget.
I think the information people wanna know, I mean, the stuff that we're doing at City Hall and stuff, you know, it's okay. But really what people really wanna know is what's happening out there, you know, what's happening in the schools, what's happening with our kids, what's happening down at the park this weekend, who's hanging out at the bar next weekend, cause there's a bunch of stuff going on out. That's what people really wanna know, what's going on, and, you know, she does have that kind of information in there, if it gets in there, you know, it has to be far enough in advance that you know about anything to get it in, so, it's, yeah, I don't know, it's a tough one.
Well, the events are definitely a must, and the school district events that maybe not everybody has a child in school, and also the personal things that she does on her articles about people in the city, which is, you know, it's like the who's who and what went on in your city, and that's very informational to a lot of people, you know, because they didn't know that these people were even in town and what they do, and the especially the events and the things that the kids are doing and the plays that are going on and all the other activities that are in town, that I know they'd use that book for that, just for that reason, let alone what we're doing to the water department and what, because I'm sure they'll be interested to know that we're still working on that underground line and the progress that we're making in that area to try to get water and up to speed and that kind of thing. I still think that'd be beneficial for the people too.
So Mike, what kind of decision do you want from us tonight?
Well, I think I was looking because, you know,
We
if
need
we're
to
gonna
decide.
do, whatever we're gonna do, we need to start working on it really. So, what I'm hearing is let's do Discovering DeSoto cooperation thing in the fall, for the fall edition, and then hold off on anything else until 2018. And we talk about an increased budgetary item, budget line item, and that's really where we'll set the plan in motion for ultimately what we're gonna do. some of the things we talked about in February as differentiating between the newsletter that gets produced by us and what Rose does with the community magazine are the differentiations between just kind of the general happenings at City Hall and our public projects that we're out there doing, and then some more of the human interest stuff with, articles type things. And, from an administrator, from a staff standpoint, it's easy to generate the content on the mundane stuff, but difficult to produce content that's worth, a story worth reading, I guess, for the other.
Do we have a way to see if we're getting the cost benefit out of this and who we're reaching, and a way to track it, to see if the public feels that that's what it is?
Not really. I mean,
Other than
not that I know of.
6,000, I mean.
We tried to survey and we got 23 responses, so
Yeah.
it's a little hard to.
It would be another public outreach program in about a year with
It could,
No,
yeah.
the same.
Analytics consultant, so there's nothing built into what we're doing that allows us to do that.
Well, I think with, knowing that communication has been always a concern of a lot of people, I would like to say that we do it one more time, but on the flip side, with the concern about budget, I think limited to one more this fall would be, an option that I'd be willing to go with.
And I guess in those, I'm kind of thinking about DeSoto days, if we wanted to try and, a mailing of the issue in advance. I mean, if the fall issue were to come out after Labor Day, then probably, obviously that's
Oh,
not.
it's mid-August.
Huh?
I have it mid-August timing it so that it's
So it sounds
before-
like that would work out well then if we would sponsor and promote that. Our big
Mhm.
issue again would be that issue, then it would get some DeSoto Days advertising in it as well, and
Yeah, that covers all the big fall events, and then the actual 160th anniversary
right.
is then. But now I have a question. Prior to this issue, I was printing and then selling these for $2.50, and I didn't want it. It's kind of be a little. I wanted to know, like, would you consider doing a postcard? And I mean, so should I sell these again, or we have talked about limited printing of 500, which would be considerably less. And
Yeah, so your concern is,
well, to
Or
sell
sell
it,
it,
not
sell
sell
it.
it.
Now you're gonna.
Yeah, because that way, I mean, it's kind of confusing, because when I put out my issues,
Well, if we were just talking about a printing cost that's $800, then,
Yeah, it'd just be $800 and they'd be for free. We don't have to do the
right, then
postcard
I think
mailer.
that would be good to have it just be consistent,
right.
free, and I know
And then
that
maybe
was
we
one
could
of your
get-
original ideas.
Maybe we can get one
Yeah.
page in there on the city.
Pardon?
Maybe we can get kind of a one-page ad thing on the city for
Oh, yeah, I can
the
work with you on,
800.
yeah, because also now my next issue is is the summer issue, comes out June 1st. Like, I had it down there, and then there's mid-August issue, and then I have a, holiday winter issue. And, but I think that might be a good way to, not have, this
Well, I was
huge.
thinking those same things, like, it's out there and then it goes away. And
Yeah, I
it's-
mean,
and
and
then
the
it comes
public
back.
really needs consistency with that. But even on that total charge, like I said, if you're not gonna have those 4 pages in there, that would be less. And so it might be able to come in more, instead of 20,000 a year, more like, say 16 or 17, so it'd be a little bit less.
So Rose, the last time you were going to do a announcement postcard, you
Right.
were going to, but you didn't because
Right.
the city did it. You were going to try to get some businesses that would be on that to announce it. So if the city paid for 500 copies to be printed, and do you think you could cover the cost of the postcard printing and mailing to announce it through doing advertising type means? So that we're not looking at 800
Right.
plus another 980 to have it, the postcard sent, just that the city
Right,
would pay for the
right.
next edition, the city would pay for the printing charges of about 500 copies, if we think that's enough. And I think that that's a good starting point.
Yeah, I think
And
that's a
then-
good starting point too.
And then we would go back to do the other, and then my suggestion would be at the end of the year, we try another survey of some way where we really get at these people and find out, okay, which way worked best? You know, was it worth it for the city to emailing it out to you, or was it better that you just stop by and pick up a copy at your local Harp store when you're in there?
And you know, that postcard might be a good avenue to do it, because I talk to people about the survey and they're like, what survey? You know, because, and then people are.
Well, we have to do it maybe a
Right,
different direction,
right.
Facebook or email or something, so.
The UPC code right there, or whatever that is, QR code
QR
right in
code.
the magazine, you scan it, and then it sends the response to,
But no, I think that would be a good way to do, the rest of the year, and maybe after the fall, you might, I'm gonna do the last one, I don't know. But that might, yeah, be, a good way to work that.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion then that the city pay for printing cost of 500 copies for the June 1st edition, and repeat our printing and mailing to the citizens of DeSoto in the fall or the mid-August edition. Does that make sense?
so, that's for me. I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Roll call.
Lane,
Yes.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Thank you, council. The motion carried.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Rick Rose.
Thank you, Rose.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to new business. Consider temporary use permit for wine song.
Yes, council, this is the fall event, put on by the DeSoto Rotary Club. Temporary use permit, as nearly as I can tell, the event is identical to the previous, few years. The date this year is June 3rd, and the event will take place from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. There will be tents, and this is at Riverfest Park, of course. There will be tents up a couple days in advance of the event and taken down the next week, so they're asking for approval there. This is a public event, so it requires a temporary use permit. The Rotary Club has asked for a waiver of the $50 fee. So like last year, we're recommending approval of this permit. So I'll answer any questions you might have. I see Bob Zindler's in the audience. I don't know if he was planning
Yeah.
on speaking on one song or not.
Either avenue.
Knows about it.
Any questions? About a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we allow the use permit and waive the $50 fee for the River Wine Fest at Riverfest Park.
Second.
A motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Motion carried.
All right. 4B, consider donation of transient guest tax funding for wine song brochures.
Yes, council, continuing on the wine song theme, we do have a budgeted expense of $1,500 from the transient guest tax to the wine song event. I think in years past, that had just been a general donation, and then the Rotary Club came back with some proof of how those funds were spent, so it satisfies our requirement that those transient guest tax funds be used for economic development or tourism. This year, they're specific. They want to fund the brochures that will be distributed at the event. And I've got in the staff report, I put together, or I just copied last year's brochure. My understanding is that this year's will be much the same. they think it'll be in the neighborhood of $1,500. So if the council's comfortable with that, we could have a motion authorizing that donation.
Any discussion on it? Motion?
I move we authorize spending $1,500 from transit guest tax funds for the 2017 wine song brochures.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any more discussion on it? All right, roll call.
Murdock,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Motion carried.
All right. Item 4C, consider request from Gil Rumsey to serve wine at the art show. Come on up.
Okay. Obviously, I'm not Gil Rumsey. I'm Linda Rumsey. And as members of the Soto Art Council, my husband Gil is hosting a solo show on the weekend of April 21st. I think you all received an invitation in your packet. Love to see you. We've done this several times before and gotten permission to serve wine on a Friday night. And the Art Council has also, at another time, served some alcoholic beverages when we've had an art show. I discussed it with City Attorney Patrick, and he looked into it, and he said that all that is necessary is for us to request for you to allow us permission to serve wine at our art show.
This will be downstairs?
Yes, in the Art Council Gallery, and in the hall, too.
Okay. Any questions for Linda? How about a motion?
I move we authorize the Gil Rumsey Art Show to serve wine at their art show in April 21st through the 23rd.
Second.
Motion to approve and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, roll call.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Murdock,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Motion carried.
Thank you, hope to see you there, and we'll also have some good food.
All right, thank you. Item 4D, a discussion of custom foods tax abatement and pilot agreement provision.
Yes, council, as you know, you recently approved the tax abatement for Custom Foods for their expansion project. And as a matter of course, with any tax abatement that has a pilot agreement with what are commonly referred to as clawback provisions, each year before we send documentation to the county indicating that the taxpayer is in compliance, I review those files and just make sure that the pilot, the conditions in the pilot agreement are being complied with. And one item that Custom Foods has indicated they do not meet has to do with the average wage rates. There is a provision in the pilot agreement that you approved and Custom Foods agreed to that requires that the wages of all their employees meet or exceed the average wage for that category of worker based on a survey, an annual survey that the Kansas Department of Labor puts out. So this is brought to your attention because essentially what we have is really can't certify to the county that they are in compliance with the pilot agreement. So what that means is, I listed the options at the end of the memo for your consideration on what to do about this. And I know there is a representative from Custom Foods here. If you have any questions, I've primarily been, talking with Farrell and Wolf, the CFO. So, just open it up for any questions, that you have, about this issue.
I do have some questions, and it's probably directed more towards Mary and.
Hello, my name's Jennifer Jager, I'm the Director of Finance for Custom Foods. And I'm Mary Leslie, I'm the Plant Manager for Custom Foods.
So the new jobs from the addition have increased correctly in the right number of new jobs?
Yes.
Correct, Dave.
Compliance with that.
And it's only been a year, so they're gonna be, and they're at starting level rates are okay on those new jobs?
Well, on those, but the pilot requires across the board for all employees.
So that, okay, so I guess my question would be then, have you had, for some reason, turnover in the other ones, or is it just that your salaries don't increase as fast as maybe some? Why are we into the situation and that it's not, the averages are lower? Is there a reason for it? What answer?
I would say that we started lower and didn't know where the average was, and so we are implementing or annual increases and things like that, and we've been doing that for the last couple of years. So wages are starting to go up, but we aren't quite to the average yet. We are well over the entry level though, with everybody that starts. So we're a good $2 or $3 more than the entry level. It's just we aren't quite up to that average on all employees.
And so it's not a matter of turnover, so you have more people that are at entry level, because those would be already at the average. I guess I'm trying to figure out how this all works, if you have some that are way over or some that are under.
So we have some examples, and this is based on our industry and manufacturing as well. So, go ahead, John. All right, so we are considered a frozen dough maker, a frozen food manufacturer, and so one of the big things is trying to figure out which category some of our people fit in. You know, so for example, a food batch maker, which are the people that are mixing things. The entry level is more like $18.83 an hour, and that's $18,000 a year. And then the average is $13.40 an hour. And so most of our employees that are at in that category are at, I mean, anywhere from more of the entry level at $10.15 an hour all the way up to, we do have somebody who is above in $15.57 an hour. So we do have some turnovers, and again, we have expanded about, I think, in the first 2 years, I think we increased at 14, and we were only required to increase at 4. So we do have a lot more people coming in at our entry level, which is only $10 or $10 an hour, which is still well above the minimum. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. How many employees do you have?
I think we're at 40 right now.
Plus times.
Plus we have.
We have right about 63 employees at the moment. We just put in 2 new product lines, and we're hiring an additional 20 people this month alone. So, which will turn into full-time jobs for them, especially with this new customer that we've brought on. We will be building another addition to our addition inside of our building to house this special customer. So. And which is going to grow our business significantly as well as our staff significantly. So.
How many full-time employees did you hire in 2016?
I believe we increased our head count from ending at 39 at the end of 15 to, I believe we were, if I remember correctly, actually at 57 at one point.
So the number of employees has increased greatly, and their salaries are starting out fine, but when you average.
The requirement is that we have to be there for all employees.
The average is.
And I think the premise of it, because this is pretty typical, is that, you know, part of the, you know, Jeff White, or we do a cost-benefit analysis, and I think part of the theory is that, you know, one of the big reasons the city wants more employees and is, you know, that's the big driver is employees, and I think the premise is that, you know, the reason you want that is, you know, you're gonna have more people shopping in your city and, you know, perhaps living here, and the thought would be that, you wanna make sure that they're earning a wage that is at a level that they can do those types of things, so.
And also, you know, you have to pay more wage for better talent of employees. So when we first initially, prior to the expansion, we had a lower education of employees. We expanded, we were trying to change the culture in our building where we have more talent, we have more technical people in the building. And to bring those folks in, we bring them in at a higher wage because that's what the market dictates to us. So the folks that have been there from prior to the expansion, those people haven't caught up yet because we do incremental performance raises based on the performance, and we do that annually. So that's where the gap is from the new hires versus our older folks that have been in the building for longevity.
So how long would we talking about trying to get those wages up, a year or two, or?
Again, it depends, it depends on one, performance of the sales and the market, which drives all of our financing in the building. And two, it depends on performance of the team as well. I mean, we've been working on giving quite a few performance based raises to a lot of folks in the building because we want to keep them because the market is very competitive right now with Amazon coming in. And we're finding it very difficult. I mean, even this month, trying to hire 20 people is very difficult because Amazon and the Jets over in Gardner and Edgerton, they're sucking up all of the temporary labor that's out there. With unemployment rate is like at 4% right now. So it's very hard to draw those people to DeSoto. And so we're raising the rates and we're getting even our hourly employees that we have now, we're in the process of doing performance evaluations, and we've recognized that they're not making nearly as much as they should, and we're working on that.
Well, the reason why I asked, if we give you a break this year, we're gonna be back there again next year and the year after that.
Well, I believe the intention is to change the wording to say that we will always be above data entry. Because as we do expand, we're always going to be bringing on new employees, probably less than average. And then the other thing is also to note that the average is fluctuating. When we looked at a couple of different years comparison, some of in our job categories, I saw one of them decreased almost $1 an hour on the average wage, and another one it increased $1 an hour. So again, we're also comparing a number that fluctuates year to year. And again, it's hard to say who us as a 60-person manufacturing company, who the other manufacturers are in the area that they're comparing them against. So that's one of the things that's a little bit more difficult for us to know as well. So like I said, I think the key is that we are well above data entry. We aren't, you know, we're just missing the average on all employees. We can't make that guarantee right now that we will be at average for all employees. But a number of them are above average. We have a lot of people that are already making well above average. We also have, you know, like I said, nobody's below data entry, and a lot of people are just a little bit below the average. I don't know if this really helps or not, but another thing, and it's a benefit, but it's something that we opt to do, is we pay for 90% of their insurance, which again isn't something, yes, employers pay a lot of, or some insurance, but not, I mean, we pay the fair share of their insurance, which, you know, I know it's a benefit, but at the same time, it is something that's not having to come out of their pocket. And if we were to pass those costs on to them and just give them the wage, we would be a lot closer to that average wage. But we opt to go ahead and pay for their insurance and give them that benefit at a very reduced cost, so.
How many categories do you have of employees?
A lot. I didn't actually count, but I do have my little report here.
I wonder if it would work if you met for each category, let's say you have 10 different categories, clerical, line workers, if for each category, your average over those, the employees in that category met or exceeded this average would seem to be, would take care of this fluctuating.
A little bit. Some of it, again, the key is all employees. So again, as Mary mentioned, we're trying to bring on new talent, fresh talent. What we're running into is that to get some of those, we are having to pay a higher wage. Whereas some of our other people that have been with us a year came in at a lower wage that were more at that entry level. Because again, we're still also young and also trying to train people and become more efficient.
How many entry-level people have you brought up in 20 to this date up to average wage? Can you give me an idea from entry-level wages starting in 2016 up to 2017 now? Have you increased
I don't know that I have that data probably to answer the question that you would like. We are getting ready to go through the annual review process. It usually happens in spring. So I would anticipate several of our employees that have been with us a year will be getting significant increases this year, because obviously we want to retain them and they've been with us a while. On the flip side, we still have employees that came in 6 months ago and they aren't up for review yet. So we do, like I said, we are putting some of those review processes in place to ensure that we do retain our talent and keep them.
Well, I'm sure you looked at
increase
the
them.
pilot agreement and realized that you have these entry-level wages and you haven't went up to the average wage, and you looked at the pilot agreement prior to coming here tonight to know that the amount of personnel you're looking at to bring up.
Yes.
So meet the
Actually, okay,
pilot agreement.
so maybe what I'm looking at. let's see
Well, I mean, to give it up to average, Mary, I mean, sorry, you're basically saying you need to go, what we would be saying was you need to go in and raise everybody's wages, is that,
And then
that's
in-
basically what it would mean to do, and,
Correct.
that's not always feasible for a company to do either.
Especially-
That's what it's saying,
Right.
really, that's the only way you're gonna do it,
And what it's gonna mean is budget-wise, that means I'm gonna have less employees coming to DeSoto, because I'm not gonna be able to essentially afford, the labor standard that we need to run our building, because of all the new product lines we're bringing in.
If you kind of think about it in the same way with what we as a city are looking at doing, is going in and looking at everybody's salary and seeing if they're in range with everybody else that does the same thing. And the only way you can fix that is to say, okay, we're taking this scale and we're jumping it up. But, and that's something that's a little hard to tell a small business to go, that they need to do that when the new people that are hiring in are at, a little bit higher scale, and they'll stay in the average range as they advance and go through. It's just the ones that have been there for a while.
Well, they should have some leeway. I mean, you got an abatement, that's an awful big savings for a company.
The way I look at it is that if we were to take away the abatement for 1 year, that's a lot of money. That's an awful lot of money. I'm not sure exactly how much it is, but it looks to me like I could pay somebody a little bit more money rather than pay us a whole bunch. Because we've agreed to go up to 2016, 17, 18, they're not paying any taxes. And that's,
On the expansion, right?
That's what I'm expansion, we just still.
they need to do something within their house to comply with this abatement. I hate to take that away, because that is a lot of money.
Yeah, I don't know what dollars out to.
I believe it's safe to start.
I think it was behind them.
I have two questions.
Darryl?
And they are just questions. How much money are we talking about for them to have to pay to make this up, to meet their legal obligation? Because it's a contract that they signed with us, I understand. And has this been done before for other manufacturing plants? And if so, I don't understand why.
Do we know any?
Yeah, we haven't done those calculations. I'm sure we can come up with that, but I don't have that information for you tonight. What if we just, took the abatement away for 2017? So keep in mind, it would only be on, this abatement was only on the expansion that they did a couple years ago. So they're still paying a base tax on the building that existed before. But right now, I can't.
And water usage and electric usage, I mean, we have increased our volume and production, so the water has gone up. I mean, we are utilizing a lot more utilities in the city with this new expansion as well, so it's not like we're not contributing anything to the community. We are.
Is the comparison total of all occupations, or is it by line item in their categories of employees?
It's by category, so if, just using clerical, what it would say is, if you have 7 clerical workers by the code number, then all 7 of those employees would need to be paid equal to or greater than the average. And what I was talking about is if you took that whole category, if it's true that you've got people way above and maybe some people under, if the council was agreeable to say, okay, well, all your employees don't need to be at the average wage, just your average has to meet the average in the survey, then would that solve the issue? Because the thought would be that your peaks and valleys would wash it out, so the average would make that work. But you're right, as written, it's every employee that you have must meet the average for that particular category.
And I see that would be hard if you're adding new jobs and you have entry level, that's kind of nonsensical that would work. Because that's why it's an average, right? Some are below and some are above. But it would make sense that the average of that position would meet the regional average.
Well, they're in compliance with hiring employees.
Head count and total payroll.
And I can
they are.
understand you bring
Yeah.
somebody new in and he's gonna work on a production line, you can't pay him $35 an hour, and like the guy that's been there 20 years, I can understand that. Well, evidently, we could surely work somehow, you've got several different options that you put on here, and,
I didn't see that, what we just
No.
talked about as one of the
I
options.
think we should, if we could maybe keep working on this and look at some options and see, I mean, I personally wanna see it work. They're increasing the number of people that are there.
yes.
I would too.
And I get that some people have been there for a long time and their averages may not be real high. But when I look at it and know from talking to Mary and other times when we've talked to them, that their turnover is not high. So it's not like people are unhappy about what they're getting there. They're content and they're happy and it's a good salary and they're good jobs for people. And it, you have some that are, a lot of line work, and then you've got some people that are, higher anyway you have, because they've gotta have scientists and stuff, you gotta have people that know what they're doing on developing these things, so you've got quite a range of salaries and people, and, I think we should try to see what we can do to make this work where, I'm not saying take away the average totally, but there's gotta be a better way to do this where we're looking at salaries that the dollars being spent on wages are increasing, but not necessarily making it as specific.
Well, I kind of have a suggestion, and we just talked about this, but in here it said that, he put down as one of the options is allow wage raise to be entry level instead of average. Maybe we could do that for 2016 and 2017, and maybe 2018 instead, and at times, such time that gives them 2 more years to bring those people up to, in compliance, and, because in 3 years or 2 years from now, they're gonna have to start paying 10% and 20% and 30%, so maybe we could take that into consideration. I don't know if we need to do that at another time, or if we can do that now.
Yeah, I just wanted to get direction from you guys, but at the next meeting, if every, but, you know, the consensus is, let's amend the pilot agreement, then I'll bring an amended pilot back to you for formal approval. I'd like to just get feedback on, is, the entry level is, or more of an average, like I had talked about, I guess.
I'd like to see that average calculated.
Yeah, I would too.
And maybe if we could come up with something like that and find out where the employees are falling in that.
Yeah.
It's,
I have one other question. Were they in compliance the first of the year to come in and pay the, well, they have to pay $1,000 the first of the year on that?
Yeah, each year they have to pay $1,000 to
Were
renew.
they in compliance for that the first of the year?
Yeah, they, you know, I don't know when their check came in, but they paid, yeah.
Patrick, is there any deadline we're working with?
I talked to the county, they sure would like it before June, so we definitely have time to move this to the next meeting, and I'll work with the guys on seeing what we can come up with.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for your
All right, thank
consideration.
you. All right. Item 4E, consider purchase of a mower for the water treatment plant.
Yes, council, in this year's water department budget, we have $10,000 budgeted for the purchase of a commercial grade zero turn mower. You'll remember a couple of years ago, we removed the water plant property and the sewer plant property from the mowing contract in favor of doing that work ourselves. The unit that we'd like to go with, we did get 3 bids on 3 different models. We looked at a John Deere, a Skag, and a Grasshopper. The Skag model was actually the least expensive at $83.75. The John Deere was $89.70, and the Grasshopper was $11,000, a little bit more than $11,000. We'd like to go ahead with the John Deere unit. There's nothing wrong with the Skag. We have a Skag mower at the wastewater plant, and it's been fine, but we like the John Deere a little better because it's got a little better warranty. The mower deck is made out of a higher grade and thicker steel, and then the best part, we think, is the flat-free tires on the rear of the unit. So, being in the environment that is out at Sunflower, we think that's going to be a benefit to us. So what I'd like is your authorization to proceed with the John Deere for $89.70 and 28 cents. So inclined.
Will this also be used for the well sites as well as that, or
We actually would
still use the one at?
on the day-to-day, the sewer plant's closer to the wells,
Yeah.
so we might still use that.
Okay, that's my question.
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion, we approve the purchase of the John Deere commercial mower for the water department in the amount of $8,970.28.
I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Walker,
Yes.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Murdock.
Yes.
Thank you, council. The motion carried.
Thank you. None too soon, the grass is growing.
Yeah. Consider bids for the 2017 slurry seal and crack seal projects.
Yes, council, we took bids on these 2 elements of our capital improvement plan for this year. We took those last week. Like the past several years, the slurry seal bid, there really is only a couple of firms in the area that do that work. We got 2 bids for that. Vance Brothers submitted a bid, as did Pavement Management of Lee Summit. The lowest bid came from Pavement Management in the amount of $77,845.68. I've got the bid tabs there connected to the staff report if you want to look how the individual line items came in. This work, we were figuring, the last time we looked at estimates for this work, I was figuring this at about a little over $92,000, somewhere in that range. We received 3 bids for the crack seal project. One was from Vance, another one was from Pavement Management, and then we got a third one from McConnell and Associates of North Kansas City. I don't recall receiving anything from them in the past, and their bid was 3 times what the other two were, so I'm not really sure why that is. In this case, the low bid was actually submitted by Pavement Management, and it was just under $22,000. But unfortunately, their bid form had a qualifier on it that specified a different type of crack seal material than the one that was called in the bid documents.
Which one was that on? I'm sorry.
This is on the crack seal.
Okay, and which was a different specification?
Yeah, the Pavement Management submitted a bid that was actually the low bid at $21,842.50. But they qualified their bid and they specified a different filler material than what was in the specifications for the project. So, and that filler material might be just as good as what we spec'd, but it wasn't the same. And so I felt compelled to disqualify their bid on that basis. So the next low bid was Vance Brothers in the amount of $23,183.50. So I'm recommending that we award the project to Vance. And I discussed this with Pavement Management. They're aware of that issue. And maybe next year we specify that we can use the material that they're wanting to use. But just in fairness, I didn't feel like we could move forward in that with their low bid. These are unit cost bids, so with most unit cost bids, I'm asking for a small contingency on each one, $3,000 contingency on the slurry seal, $1,000 on the crack seal. So at the last page of the staff report, I've got 2 suggested motions to award those 2 projects. So let's not forget to do that. But the other topic of discussion associated with this is the overall CIP budget, and with the low bids primarily, because these bids came in about where we thought they would be. Primarily, we got a very favorable bid on the 91st Street construction, so that leaves us with about $86,000 in CIP funding for this year that we weren't expecting that we have. So we talked briefly at the last time when we took the 91st Street bid, we talked a little bit about what we might want to do with that. There's always the option to do nothing with that, let it sit in the CIP fund, and it can roll over to next year, and we can talk about programming it for next year. We can also have Table 2 on page 3 of the staff report shows a list of potential projects that didn't quite make the funding level for this year. And at the last meeting, we also discussed curbs on 87th Street. If you've been down there lately, they don't look much like curbs. They look more like mountain streams with boulders in them. They're really, really in bad shape, all the way through, all the way from 87th all the way up past the cemetery. They're in bad need of replacement. So Table 2, the last 2 lines there, has 2 items for 87th Street curb replacement. One would just go to Primrose, which is listed Pinnacle Primrose, and then the other one would be west of Primrose. If we want to pursue that total cost is going to be right around $108,000. Now that's based on one bid that we got from one contractor. We're getting other bids as well, so that's probably a maximum that we could expect. We'll need to get another couple bids before if we want to pursue that. That would leave us short about $22,000. So the decision is, do you want to do just half of them? In which case, you'll look like you kind of ran out of money. Probably be the case. If you want to do them all, then we do have an option of removing a project that we've decided to put on the list. And I think the obvious one would be, there's a $25,000 line item. In Table 1, I've shown all of it. I didn't even really breeze past it, but Table 1 there shows all the projects that we selected for this year, the original cost estimates, and then the new estimates or the actual costs there in that next column. If you look down toward the bottom, we have a line item demo of old water plant, $25,000. We put that in there to remove the old water treatment plant building at the street department yard. If we forego that, then it looks like we'll have enough money to do all the curbs on 87. it is definitely needed. And I would think would be a priority over any of these other things on the list. We choose to do that. And my recommendation is it is priority over the demolition of the water plant building as well. I didn't make a specific recommendation, but if you asked me tonight, that would be my recommendation. To do it.
Well, you know, I walk there, I live on that street, and that street's 10 years old, and the concrete is completely, it's just gone. And well, what's starting to happen now is, when the blacktop meets up with the concrete, the blacktop's starting to deteriorate. And if we let that go very much longer, we're gonna be replacing the blacktop, and it's not bad enough to be replaced, probably for another 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I would agree, and Rick, you probably are familiar with this issue. It's, they got some bad aggregate, or porous aggregate, and if you look at the chunks, every one of the rocks is split right in half. That's what happened.
Explodes from the inside out.
Yep. Yep. So, we do need the 2 suggested motions, and, you know, if we can't make a decision on the funding, that's not the end of the world.
Do I have a motion on the?
Sure.
Well, we'll start with
slurry
that.
and crack
I move
seal?
to accept the low bid for the 2017 slurry seal project and award the contract to Pavement Management in the amount of $77,845.68 and authorize an additional $3,000 in contingency funding from capital improvements fund for the project.
A second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Ritter,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Murdock.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Motion carried.
And a motion for the crack seal.
I move to reject the low bid for the 2017 crack seal project from Pavement. Wait a minute. Management on the basis that it was not responsive to the bid specifications and award the contract to Vance Brothers in the amount of $23,183.50 and also authorize an additional $1,000 in contingency funds from capital improvement fund for the project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Murdock.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Motion carried.
Do we need to make a motion about the 87th Street curve?
Well, what would happen if you if you just give me direction in that way, we still need to bring some bids back, so the formal approval will come when.
I think that's the right thing to do. Let's fix that curb before we lose the edge of the pavement.
Me too.
Okay, well, we'll head that direction. All right, good. Okay, hopefully, maybe the next meeting. Maybe the one after.
Consider ordinance amending city code pertaining to city elections.
Yes, council, this really is just a kind of a housekeeping thing to take the provisions that you approved as part of the charter ordinance and include those in the city code. We do currently have a article of the city code that is titled City Elections. The one item that we do need feedback from you on is the last section of this ordinance, 6-109. That's a reference to nomination petitions. And what that's referring to is that when someone files to be a candidate for a city election, if they want to avoid paying the filing fee, which currently is $20, they can, we can make a requirement that they submit a certain number of signatures by qualified electors. So that's really all it's about. So I've highlighted in yellow the input. If you just want to drop the nomination petition, that's completely fine. We don't have to have it. That would just mean that anybody running for office would need to pay for the filing fee. But if you do want to leave that option open that someone could file for office by submitting signatures in lieu of the filing fee, then we need to indicate how many signatures you would require. And that can either be a flat number, or percentage of those who voted in the last election, or the higher of either one of those or the lower. So happy to answer any questions.
$20.
I think just drop
Auto
it.
cost
I dropped it.
$20 of gas.
Yeah, I just
Around
dropped
gets
the
signatures.
number.
We would have to verify that, or somebody has to verify that they're valid signature, right?
Yeah, the election
So
office
that's,
would do that.
I mean, that's expensive there in its own right as well. I mean,
So if everybody's good with that, if you'll just make a motion, and in your motion, adopt the ordinance as written, with the exception of deleting the section 6-109.
I make a motion that we, keep 6-109, deleting the nomination petition signed section.
And that's ordinance number 2414, council.
So I'll second Danny's motion to approve ordinance 2414, deleting section 6-109.
All right. We have a motion and second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Murdock,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Thank you, council. The motion carried.
All right. Item 4H, consider proposal from Great Life Fitness. Clifford?
Yes, council, I've included a memo in your packet. Mike and I have met a couple times now with Great Life Fitness about this issue, and they have made a proposal to the city that they agree to increase their rent starting, it would be June 1 of this year, from $200 to $500. And in return, they would request a 3-year lease with the city. And Mike, I don't know if you want to kind of explain the financing that you sort of discussed when we met with them.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think in the end, they don't feel like they can come up with a lump sum cash contribution to the issue at hand, which is really the ADA access to the facility. We've been working, we started with BG Consultants last year to come up with a plan and some cost estimates that it would take to get a handicap access ramp from the floor level near the Parks and Rec office up to that, to the door that goes onto the stage. Initial estimates were around $70,000. But Steve Chick had a closer look at it, and we put all Steve Chick's stuff there in the staff report. And he's been working with a representative actually from the ADA regional coordinator, Kansas coordinator with the ADA, on an alternative plan and talking directly with contractors and vendors with this. Come up with a current estimate includes a contingency of right around $38,450. So, somewhere just under the $40,000 mark is what we think it's gonna take to get the ADA access there. And so we talked with Great Life about essentially splitting that. So when you talk in terms of a $19,000 sort of commitment on their side, they propose that increasing their rent by $300 would essentially, 1 year you get $3,600, so you come up to $19,000 within the course of just over 5 years, 5-year payout on that. So that's the proposal from them. If we want to move forward with that, what I would suggest is that we discuss that in the context of our capital improvements programming for the 2018 budget. Yeah, I think it would be a really good community development block grant project. which is, you know, the grant money from the county. Not to say that this is an opportunity to get this for free, because we program that grant money in our CIP every year, and could otherwise use it for other priorities on our list, but, we typically get about $100,000 from that. So this would be one project we'd probably submit for another one as well, if we did that. But in terms of the lease, those are the general parameters. So, you know, we'd be upfront, we'd be doing the project and essentially paying for that upfront. And their increase in rent to $500 would pay off in a little over 5 years. The provision, I think it made in the lease, with their rent after that, after they reach that halfway mark, that $19,000, their rent would go back down. So presumably, if nothing else changes in the next 5 years, conceivably the rent could dial back to the $200. I think is what they proposed.
That's what they, yeah.
And I don't know if we.
I didn't
See,
include that.
It don't pay out in 3 years, so.
No, it's
You're
like
talking
5
So would we want to increase the contract to say 5 years? And that way we'd ensure that that money would stay there for 5 years?
Or there could be some sort of a
$600 a month.
redemption clause, a buyout clause, if they left
Yeah,
before
if they
paid
wanted
it off
to
or something.
keep it at 3, that if they wanted to go back in 3, that they'd have to buy out whatever was contingent left on that chair,
Yeah.
the list.
Mike, during your discussions with them, they want to stay here long term, don't they? So, I mean, they didn't act like they were going to leave in 3, did they?
No,
No.
no, no,
So, I
not
mean,
at
that
all.
would be their intention to stay
That's
5+
right.
years, hasn't it?
For $200 a month rent, I wouldn't.
I have 2 other questions, and I don't know. Was, when they were given an occupancy permit, was this dismissed? I mean, was this something that, a new requirement, a new code requirement required, or was it a code requirement back then that just?
I think it got missed.
The lease had in there, they have to
I'm new to
comply
this, I'm just asking.
with, you know, federal, state, and local laws, but as far as, you know, inspection and, yeah, I think it just wasn't flagged.
And with the grant idea for next year, are there other parts of our building that we could use improvements onto?
That's why maybe it'd be a good time to start our building facility use planning, you know, to see what other areas we might need to.
There's other ADA
There's
needs
other
here.
doors,
Right.
other doors that need opening
Open
or.
or widening or whatever.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
Well, the whole building plan, you know, it's kind of funny, because when I was looking through some minutes, trying to remember exactly when the fitness center opened, I found notes from the mayor at that time, Dave Anderson, and we were commenting, which I brought this up at least once a year, maybe once every few months, is we need a plan for the future of this building. And, you know, we keep acting in response to people, and that was a case with this. You know, they came in, they wanted to work in the city. They wanted to have a fitness center here. They came to the city to do a joint with us. Their original plan wasn't that space, it was other spaces. And, you know, we then, in response to that, said, okay, well, let's see what we can put together. And we took that space and, you know, it's a good space, it's fine, it's being used now, and it was not used, it was being used, but not as much before. And I'm not against the whole center at all, but, you know, we really need to make a plan for future, so we're not, you know, so this type of thing doesn't get missed, but I personally am not so sure why the city has to pay for it, but.
I don't either. I just don't, I wasn't for that when it first came about, but then they threw the golf course in, and you know, there's a lot of people in this town that play golf. And I see lots of people when I'm walking around are exercising, working out. I've never went up and asked them if they could get in and out of that back there, and I've never seen anybody crippled go up there. Of course, I know we have to be in compliance.
It's kind of hard right now.
I personally think, I may not shut up, but if they're gonna do this, it needs to be $600 an hour. I don't know if they can pay that, I don't know, that's just my.
I mean, I like the 500 with 5 years, 6 years, 10 years. I mean, I just think I just don't think they want to go anywhere. Just think discussions about.
5 years would be a payoff, right?
A little over 5 years and a couple months.
I wouldn't wanna offer them a 3.
Keep in mind, by offering them a 5, it goes both ways, you know, you're committed to them using that space for that 5 years, which I don't know what else we'd use it for anyway, but just so you're aware that it's, you know, that ties it up.
To go back to the stage or the prior use, I mean, if we made that space available to the public, we would end up having to do this at some point, no matter what. Or we would either have to close that space or make it accessible, is that correct?
Yeah.
I mean, we were allowing people to use that before, we did not have access to it, so.
Well, really the trigger point was the improvements.
Right, right.
Because the level of improvements were done, that triggered the ADA, you know, coming into compliance.
What improvements did they do that other than put that glass up?
HVAC,
Electrical, HVAC, glass.
They pay their own electricity, Jeff,
Yeah.
is that right?
I think they were saying it was about, I forget they
100
gave the dollar amount, but.
$107,000.
Yeah, more than 100,000.
Yeah.
But when we make improvements to the current stairs, is that correct?
The ones out back?
You know, the ones that are up front to their facility, we put paint grit, slip grit stuff on. The distance there's going to their facility.
I couldn't promise, I'm not familiar.
Because I believe we had to use a different entrance for a while.
Okay,
And then we've never called it.
okay, no, I'm not familiar with what we do.
Well, do we have a direction on, give Patrick?
Well, it needs to be done, I'm just not happy the city's paying for it, I'll just say that. I'm a business person who's put a lot of money into buildings that I've been in, I've had to put it in knowing I'll never get it back out, so it's just what happens when you lease the space. You pay for the improvements and they get left there. And, you know, I know what everybody says, well, if they would leave or anything happens and we have this space and we're gonna have to pay for it to get that way, blah, 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 but, you know, they've gotten off very easy for
Yes, they have.
for everything, and I use it, it's not like I'm complaining because I don't like it, I use it I'm, you know, I'm a consistent user of it, it's,
I'd like to raise the rate to what it is in the 3-year, but go for a 5-year contract. That's what I would like to make a motion.
So $500 at
Yeah,
3.
for 5 years.
For 5 years, yeah.
so it would have to be at least, either, if the lease is still 5 years, or 3 years, but, you know, there's gotta be some kind of a
Were you meant
commitment
as
to
a
take.
motion, Eddie, or just?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were in the middle of.
I'll have to bring back, if I just get consensus, I'll have to bring the lease back
No, I
anyway,
guess I'm
and they'll have to
okay.
agree to it, obviously, so.
Thank you.
I don't, unless you want, you know, if you want to, that's fine, but I don't need a motion.
No, okay.
What would it be if you got it done over 3 years instead of 5 years? They're half of it.
Well, you'd
Well,
be
keep
short.
in mind, we're still dealing with estimates, but if we
Well, and I
understand
think-
that.
And if
From
we get the,
conversations that I've had with Steve, it may not even be quite that high.
if we were lucky enough to get the grant block money, can we use all that to them, that project, or do they have a cost matched to that?
No, we can use it all.
And then we wouldn't be discussing this particular issue.
Well, I mean, the caveat there is we program that grant money, we get it every year, just almost automatically. We program that in our CIP. So that's funds we could use for other.
For other things too.
So we
Not-
really are paying for it, I mean, I guess it's.
But we do have other buildings that we don't have total ADA access to either. So
Yeah,
we could
but I
use some-
think
use some upgrades
we
as
don't
well.
have, I mean, I understand the desire to provide ADA everywhere, but there's really no liability associated with it against other buildings and other places because we haven't had a triggering project that brings us under the umbrella of the ADA requirements. See what I'm saying?
So is it a dollar amount that triggers that, or is it just construction work?
Well, it's a little bit nebulous, but it's a substantial improvement sort of language. Is that?
I was
I thought also it could be triggered by the use, or just the, someone demanding access, right?
That's
So,
what I would figure.
I mean, someone wanted, you know, everybody else is able to use that stage for the pickers and fiddlers, but I'm disabled and I'm not able to get up there, that's not fair, and you need to get me up there.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, assuming it's reasonable to accommodate that, you're right, it would, the ADA would require it. So, but being that it's in a public building, I mean, kind of, it's true. Great Life, as our, you know, the city, they have the liability as well as the city, but even kind of aside that, the fact that it's in a public building is another trigger that requires it, so.
Well, I think we need to be real careful before we keep renting out spaces to people.
Right.
Because we can't rebound, it's just not working. But I think we should just take the half, whatever the estimates come out to, the bids come out to be, and half of it, and they pay it out over 3 years, we'll be 3-year lease.
Over 3 years, okay, so if that's the
Their
case.
payments increase a little bit higher, but, you know, they get it done in 3 years, and their lease is for 3 years,
And I agree with Dean.
and then it's done.
Okay, so we have some, we want 3, and then we have others wanting 5. We'll talk with Great Life then.
I think what I'm getting from Danny is that he just wants to make sure whatever, the term of the lease covers the amount of the
Yeah.
cost, right? Whether
Yes.
it's 3 years, 5 years, as long as at the end of that lease period, the amount is paid. I think that's kind of what
Okay.
we're all wanting.
That's simple enough.
So I guess let Patrick go and see what the force will dwell with us.
Okay. You bring that back next meeting, or we'll take on? Yep. Okay. All right, we have an executive session.
Yes,
Right.
15 minutes for personnel.
Patrick and us.
Yeah,
Okay, I make a motion, we go into executive session for 15 minutes to discuss personnel matters, bringing our city attorney and city administrator.
I'll second that motion.
We start at 8:45 with 5-minute recess.
8:40, beginning at 8:45.
Yeah. Hey, Ron.
we have to make a motion.
Yeah,
We made the motion, we just gotta do the vote.
that was a motion. Did we have a second?
Yeah, I second it.
Did you second?
We
Oh,
have to
okay.
vote now.
Roll call.
That should do it by ayes.
All in favor?
Huh?
All in favor?
Okay, whatever.
Aye.
Aye.
I wouldn't want to run the meeting.
We didn't ever vote.
All in favor with aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Okay.
Sorry, Phil, I didn't
I wasn't paying any attention about that.
Thank you.
Need a motion to return.
I move we return from executive session. Only matters of personnel were discussed, no votes were taken.
I'll second that.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? All right. Advisory reports, Mike?
Yeah, just one thing, we're working hard on budget, right now, and we're in budget spreadsheet purgatory in my office and Bonnie's office, is what we're calling it. I've got the 5-year projections completed, and we're working on, initial preliminary budget proposals. Our schedule has, the initial budget proposal to you, to the council, by the next council meeting, so 2 weeks. We're trying to meet that deadline. And so from there, you know, the schedule doesn't let up at all. You know, we need to get it and keep on. We'll probably be talking about that at each meeting from here until June. That was my whole report.
That's it?
Yes.
Patrick?
I don't have anything.
Nothing? Planner?
No, sir, nothing tonight, thank you.
All right, we'll start with council. Kevin?
I don't have anything.
Lori?
Yeah, I do have something. I think that as we're moving forward, and I don't know where we are on our, city visioning stuff and when we're gonna have our next whatever we're doing next step.
Yeah.
But we can go on there, but I really think we need to think about our parks, soccer fields in particular, and keep working, either it's pushing the county or doing something, because, our fields are really bad. And I get that it's rained a lot lately, but the water that is sitting on these fields is, you know, they can't play. You know, this is Miller Park, where of course they do DeSoto days, and there's still ruts in there from last year's DeSoto days that fill up with water now when they're doing this. And I got an email today from somebody that said that we have the worst soccer fields in our neighboring communities, and that really hit me hard, because, you know, I've been trying to talk about, you know, how park and recs are really big and how they're very important. And you know, when you have people that are sending you emails saying, you know, that we're bottom of the line between Eudora, Wellsville, and Baldwin when it comes to anything, I don't care what it is, I don't want to be there. And I know Johnson County shot us down, and they chose to go with a different avenue, but I think we need to get back on board with our park board, make it a park board of members of the community that really have a real interest in coming up with creative ways to work and come up with ideas that are necessary for the future of our city when it comes to the recreation programs in our parks, and really can come up with some ideas on what we can do in the meantime. Because, you know, when our kids can't play soccer for 2 weeks because of, you know, it's raining, then, well, you know, I get that it's gonna rain, but soccer's usually played in rain and snow. They don't cancel them. The reason they're being canceled is that we don't have fields that are good enough to drain the water off in any way. Instead, the only place we have the kids to play is in a park that all the water drains into it, and it sits there. I don't know if it's working with the school. I think we use some schools for some of the ages maybe, but maybe, you know, we need to work more with them and find out if they have other fields we can use or something that we can do, because, you know, you can't play soccer in this water. And so, you know, when we were talking about moving forward and what we want to do with that extra money, you know, I'm thinking we really need to work on this park overhaul plan and look at what we're going to do, or come up with some ideas, or at least if we're not going to pay somebody to come up with a plan, pull out the old ones and let's get some park board together and get some visioning going that's going to at least put a plan for the future in place when it comes to what these things are. Because recreation for our kids or our grandkids or the young people in this town, along with the old people, the adults, didn't mean old people, the adults, is really important. Right now, the gals that run the fitness center don't have enough equipment. We're not talking about thousands of dollars worth. We're not talking about $19,000 worth of equipment. That's another, you know, when I say that. Yeah, they just need more weights and more steps. They have people willing to take the class. They don't have the equipment to use for them. Those are cheap things to buy and do, but we need to keep putting money into some of that stuff. And it's really frustrating when I have people come into me all the time about this, and I can't do anything about it because we don't even have a park board in place to do it. We put thousands of dollars into roads, and we can't take care of the people needing something to do in this town. So I want us to not forget this and keep moving forward with it. And I just said I would bring this all up, and so that's my bringing it all up.
Well, Lori, I can report on some of that. In preparation for the budget discussions, I've asked Jay and Justin to work with the Johnson County Parks, because, you know, the master plan for the Lexington Lake does include soccer fields for the city of DeSoto. That was the intent. It shows 4 big areas that almost look like big soccer fields, but really they'd be smaller fields in the middle, in among these areas. And the way our fields, the way Jay put it to me was, soccer is our biggest recreation program by far in terms of participation, and it's our worst facility. We've got them scattered around at school district sites, you know, here and there. We have 3 of them down at Miller Park. What you try to do is have 2, because we play in the spring and in the fall. And you can't play at the same place in the spring and the fall. It just needs time to recover. The grass needs time to recover. So the 4 areas that are shown on the master plan out of the park were intended to, you use 2 areas during the spring and then 2 others during the fall. What I've asked Jay to put together is a plan that would get us out of Miller Park. So basically, it's just one season on one of these areas. So it'd just be one area, you know, just to get a foothold, just to get a start out of the park. So we've been talking recently, as recently as this week, about putting that together so that we can consider it for funding for next year. I think the trouble with that, with the whole concept has been, the plan's great, and I think, you know, the plan to get out of Miller Park is needed, you know, with the Soto days that goes on down there and all the other drainage problems and parking issues that we have down there, and long-term, being out at Lexington Park is a great solution for that, really is. But it's got a $500,000 price tag, and it's difficult, like we've talked about with the Public Works facility, for us to be pulling the trigger in any given year. But if we could pare that down to just, let's just get us out of Miller Park, maybe that's a baby step we could take. So we're looking at that, and, you know, right now, we don't know exactly what the price tag will be, but obviously we're less than $500,000, and we can consider it in light of other priorities like streets and the other stuff that we typically fund. So I think we're headed in at least a positive direction in that.
Well, and I think that's one of the things, at a couple meetings ago, at one of our Rotary meetings, I don't remember even what we were talking about, but I tried to tell people, you know, when you look at this big, I mean, because I remember the price tag on the soccer fields was $1.3 million. It just is, you know, that's this complex, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, so you get that stuck in your head that we can't do anything because it costs too much. Well, yeah, we weren't gonna do 91st Street for how many years either because it cost too much, and then we came in way under bid. I mean, you find other ways to get things done, and, you know, that's one thing that we as a council can really be different about, is trying to find unique ways and, you know, grants or something to help us get things done. And, you know, one of the biggest things that we have always had going good for us is our relationship with Johnson County and having them come out and help us with programs and help do things. And, you know, use the baseball fields that are theirs, you know, it works out, and we've gotta keep I feel we need to keep in their face and keep with them and working with them and talking to them and making those kind of things happen. Otherwise, you know, it's not going to. And soccer is the biggest, I mean, the whole Johnson County area. I mean, that's why they're building brand new soccer fields just down the road from us, another complex, from what I understand. So, you know, I just hope we don't let things slide by and just keep on it, because it really is important for the kids. So I'm glad to hear that. And, you know, sometimes we do have to scale back and make pieces of it, but we need a plan for it too. So the only other thing I had was just to remind everyone that I won't be here at the next meeting, and I will be out of town, so hopefully everybody, Kevin is hoping he's not gonna have a problem, but
I'm hoping that my surgery will be the week after.
Is there a reason why we can't get those drains to drain? We've talked about this on and off for 20 years now. We can't shoot them in and find out a way to make them
down the park?
Yeah.
You mean the existing structures
Yeah.
over there now?
We keep digging that ditch on the other side, but
Yeah, that doesn't have anything to do
No,
with
I know.
it.
There is a drainage system there that was put in about 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Still put there.
goes past the elevator,
But
doesn't it?
it just works a little bit, it don't work like it
Probably
should.
no slope on the pipes to begin with,
There's
it's
not,
so
and it
flat.
doesn't, it ends, it goes onto the engineered air property and dead ends.
But it does go out, there's a pipe that goes underneath it.
Used to.
Well, it's still there, I think, goes
Oh.
underneath the railroad tracks.
Yeah, it's cut off over on the engineered air property.
Goes underneath it, and there's a manhole right there by their fence, and it goes underneath that corner and goes right alongside those buildings. And there's a pipe that goes underneath that they jury rigged that goes in that pipe. It works, but it just works for that one end. It don't work for over there where the water is and where we need help, and we need to do something there. But
It would take, I mean, some grading, significant grading effort in the park itself. You know, just to get it to drain even if the drains work. You know, the ground just doesn't quite drain.
It's bringing up, it's not, there's no taking down, so you're bringing in material to make up slope. elevate, you gotta elevate one end to get it to go the other way.
And that's not the only way to drain the thing. I mean, there's lots of things we could look at to drain. But we didn't want to do it just for the soccer fields, right? Because any money you spend, if your long-term plan is out somewhere else, we need the park to drain just because we need the park to drain. But I don't think it's wise to spend tens of thousands of dollars at Miller Park, because that's not our long-term plan for where those facilities are.
We've gotta have some kind of plan to keep these kids in the program. I got 2 grandkids and they can't play. They go out there and the water's standing out there 2 or 3 inches deep and you can't play in it. When it's raining, down there when it's raining, they play in the rain, but once the water gets up, then it's not safe.
Yep.
Well, and it'll destroy the fields more, and it's just like the baseball fields. We have awesome baseball fields. Jay, that was kind of his thing though, and he's got baseball fields that it can rain and you can play later in the day, or you're gonna play the next day, because the way it's made, and when you're playing on them, you're not totally destroying them. The grass fields out there, when you play on them, when they're wet, or they get destroyed, and then it takes forever to come back again.
Yeah, the other problem is there's no room to adjust where the field is and where the goals are. The other part of what you do is every week or so you move where the goals are and lay out the field so you're trampling other grass, and that's what we'd be able to do at a planned facility. Miller Park is just exactly, they are where they are, and it's barely big enough for that.
Well, when you talk to your county commissioner or something, tell him to get us some soccer fields.
Yeah.
Well, we're not hearing I don't know that there's ever been pushback from the county that they wouldn't allow the soccer fields there.
They just don't have any money they're not gonna put in the project right now.
Yeah.
Okay, Rick?
I don't have anything right there. Thank you.
Ron? Nope. Kenny?
Yeah, I got one thing. I was talking to the people up at the fire station, I think, and they said they still have leaks and water issues in there. And I thought we had most of that taken care of now, that, I'd like somebody with the city to go up and address that and find out what is that problem, and we've got something that they didn't do.
Well, we have something that we still need to do. What we think, and we heard the same thing.
Okay.
Recently, in the last couple of weeks, we had one night that the wind was blowing from the north, and just, what we believe is happening is that we have the north, where the stairs go into the upper door on the north face of the newer building, that block face needs to be sealed. The project we did last year, that we're still finishing up, did some masonry repairs on that block, but we didn't seal that face of that. So we're pretty convinced that the water is intruding into that block face and then running down there and entering the building. I think that's a result of a project that we know we have to do, we just haven't done yet. We think, but we need to follow.
Okay, well, we haven't finished with what we started up there, right? I mean, the windows still broke, everything else is still, they haven't came back.
Right, yeah.
Is there a plan of when they're gonna come back?
Yeah, we're working with the contractor to get it finished. Yeah, it's been frustrating. They stopped because of the winter essentially, and it hasn't been winter for quite a while. So, yeah, there's some level of frustration with getting that finished.
You have to keep that drain that's at the bottom of those stairs clean all the time too, or that water will run in that door.
Yeah, and see, I don't know if that's the case or not. None of us were there when it was. We have some pictures, but can't tell from the picture where the water's coming.
Can we have somebody go up there and look at that this week? Address it?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
We have. We've been up there. I don't know if it was this week, maybe last week.
Okay.
And that's what we think is happening.
Well, the fire department's supposed to have someone come in and look at the mold issues.
Yeah, so I sent an email yesterday about my meeting there this week. Yeah, they're gonna have, and this is kind of the first I've heard of this since 2012, that there's still firefighters maybe having some respiratory issues and having some rashes, maybe getting sick. They think there might be still a mold problem in the building. So the district has approved for, their consultant to go in and do some sort of a mold assessment in the building. I don't know what that will entail, but they're gonna get us a copy of that.
We did air samplings, you know, and all kinds of samplings a long time ago, but that doesn't mean that, you know, different HVAC systems and different changes to the building could have
Yeah.
spurred that up.
Yeah, so we'll see, what they come back with. And just in terms of the discussion at the fire board, very positive. You know, they understand our concerns. I expressed we understand their concerns. And I referenced in my email that they have maybe an idea that they'll go ahead and pay rent, if we keep some maintenance responsibility there. If we don't wanna do that, then, you know, they just need to look at it in terms of their costs and liabilities to make sure that the lease, that they're comfortable with whatever lease we come up with. They understand that there's some frustration on our part that the lease is long overdue, and, you know, taking responsibility for their part in that delay, and have assured me, that we'll work diligently on that to come to a point where we can have a lease that's.
Well, Linda did most projects in the lake, and you can hire her if you want to, because she can tell you within 30 minutes of, and she beat the $83,000 machine they had in the lake down.
You got a nose for mold?
And dogs that do that too.
She loses her voice for 3 days. So,
Oh, no
and
kidding.
it'd be a benefit to me if you.
I might have that old study, but I know we did air sampling in all the ducts. And I
We
know
don't
we
have
did
that
swab
on video.
sampling and stuff.
I hope not.
Anything else, Danny?
That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Any news on the Mexican restaurant out there?
Mike just gave me a flyer and said he went down and visited the Baldwin one, and they said it'd be about 2 months probably.
Too much.
2 months? Okay. I don't have anything else.
How about Lance? She got anything?
I did not.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All right.
You're done with this.
Yes.
Dale, do you remember the old dog that came to?
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
You probably don't want
Got
to.
it wrote, we had to read somebody down.
But I'll see you when you get back to ours. Linda won't let me go. Although I used to. When we were in.
I was gonna ask you, did you figure out whose truck that was?
That's good.
That's what I figured.
Okay, we'll see you, girl.
Huh? No.
That's definitely.
But I tell you what, put money in there.
Okay, Dean, we'll take care of it.
You take the truck away from me. I'm sitting out here after the last meeting, with the windows down and all the tools.
See you, Mike. Take
See you
care.
later,
Good
Danny.
luck with
All right.
everything. Have a good week.
That includes trails.
All right, see you, Dan.
Right.
Are you doing a seminar next month?